because I came in as to be independently minded asset manager, right? Because, insurance business, they have their own placements, assets. It's more or less banking logic. You have a bond book, more or less. You have, very scarcely something else, but, it applies the same credit worthiness assessment logic and valuation logic as banking. Very comparable if you're responsible for investment part of the insurance book, right? And then I realized that this is a first majority state-owned company, and their maybe principles are a bit different. You're not necessarily, eagerly
or
awaited as the independently minded person, right? And, I got couriers coming to my office, maybe Triglav Insurance should buy that. I said, no. Why should it, right? I'm following the Companies Act, which says you perform your business in the interest and on behalf of the company, not someone else's partial interest, right? Of this very specific company you run. And there were such incidents here and there. And then, of course, I didn't get the license of the Insurance Supervision Agency. I was, not recognized as fit and proper for, a management board role in the systemic insurance company, largest in the country and the largest in Balkans. What do you do? That was a stress, right? That was a real stress situation. And this was 2009. I was 35. And I was told by the regulator in a sovereign country in European Union not to be appropriate to be a management board member of the regulated business. What do you do? Any future application contains, of course, in this table, this remark. Was there any regulatory body that took away or did not, of course, grant you a license? And of course, you have to tick the box, yes, and then explain, right? And then what do you say? Right? So it was really challenging. At that point of time, I decided, wow, this is the largest insurance company in the country. This is finance industry, regulated industry. Me being career finance guy in regulated business, what do I do? I was appointed as a management board member of the largest insurance company, and I was not vetted. What do I do now? Can I count on being vetted for future board positions in banks? Although I was vetted before in the banks, but after this experience, will I be? Right? This was real stress. And then I said, obviously I need to leave the country for a while because, what do I do now? You're appointed as a board member of the largest, right, insurance business or finance business. And then what do I do next? I can't be, a branch manager in the bank or something. If you try to manage your career. So at that point of time, I started looking around. I took a month off and I started looking around. And then I realized that Hypo Alpe Adria has got a new management board. It was just, exactly mid of 2010 when Mr. Kranebiter and his team then came in. And then I did the same. I sent an offer. I see you have a problem, right? I've got some corporate banking skills. I might be the right, part of your team to address this problem. I was within a month or two, we, came to an agreement. And in a couple of months, I was then running the corporate and public finance sector as B1. So not a board position, but B1 in Klagenfurt, right? Sitting in Klagenfurt for 2 years. And that was the experience. This was the experience. 55% or whatever NPL ratios, and, these exposures, a lot of real estate speculation. I remember my first credit committee, when we had on the table, I think it was 54 cases. And we just first wave of reviews, of portfolio reviews, right? 54 cases, all real estate speculation, all more than 50 million exposure. It began at 3 p.m. It ended at 3 a.m. next month.
That's a credit committee.
This was my first working day. 3rd of December 2010. I will never forget that because we created 830 million provisions in this my first session. I said, I just joined the show and I just made 830 million loss. Where did I enter now? And such things then really profile you. This is the hard stuff, right? First, you are not accepted as a profile locally. Then you come to totally, of course, foreign environment. At that point in time, of course, I was learning German in gymnasium and so on, but I was not fluent, right? And of course,
this was the time to learn
people
German.
in Carinthia are pretty specific. We know that, right? When it comes to Slovenian-Austrian relationship. So I had to, of course, learn German. I apologize not speaking English because for 13 years, I'm not that actively addressing anyone in German, but I can still understand everything, of course. But this was really first foreign environment, foreign language, that you are barely catching up because, of course, we can have a view whether, Corinthian Austrian is, Hochdeutsch, right? Because I had my Hochdeutsch lessons taken, but this was something else I was listening to.
Something different in Frankfurt and in Graz.
The same as in Slovenia, people from Southwest don't understand someone from Northeast. It's like for Albak and, Steiermark. I mean, it's a different ballgame, right? So it was really new environment, shocking structure of portfolio, and language and everything else. But I took it as a challenge. And then for 2 years, I was bleeding here. And I said, I will stay in Austria. I said, I was somehow envisaging, be it within Hypo or other banking groups, because I had previous experience also from other banking groups. I might want to go to Vienna. Obviously, the quality of life in Vienna is among the best in the world, right? So I could easily envisage my family living in Vienna. I mean, if anywhere else than where I live now, it could easily be Vienna, right? And I was already starting working on this. And I said, I will return to Slovenia only if the project is big enough and the team fits. Big enough meaning I can actively reshape the environment into professionalization terms. Exactly learning the hard way how it works, right? With these partial interest mechanisms embedded. And still majority of big businesses, first listing in Urbana Stock Exchange, have material investment of the Republic of Slovenia. NLB is the only business that really is fully independent in mind, with international governing bodies, to the significant extent attributed to the European Central Bank kicking in with their direct supervisory mechanism, right? Otherwise, God knows, right? And that's a privilege I have in my management board. People, two Germans, one Austrian, right? One Macedonian, 3 Slovenians, and in supervisory board, guys that are former JP Morgan, Barclays, Citi, ING, right? Directors. So that's a real privilege. We are the only arm's length run business in the region with such systemic importance in the entire region, right? And in this respect, that's of course a privilege. And then I saw, okay, the NLB is in a much worse shape than it used to be. It requires fundamental restructuring. I just had my 2 years of hard rock cafe at Hypo. All right, let's grab a beer and work. Making jokes, but it was, of course, for me, I had the toolbox, because we just did in Hypo what was necessary to be done. Of course, it took them many more years because the magnitude of the problem was very, very big, right? Today's Adria is 1/6 of what it used to be, right? It was 34 billion business. Now it's 6 billion business. So it was something totally different. And we had to run down everything and brush the so-called brush portfolios. But I had the skill set. I had the toolbox. I had, the energy, and I exactly knew what is awaiting me. And then I was called by the that-time chairman. That was a kid that we started working with together in Bankhaus Gitanstadt. That was the chairman of the supervisory board, and then became, was supposed to take over as a CEO. But he said, I'm not doing it alone. Are you doing this with me? And so it started. And now it's 12 years. Almost 12 years and a half. And in the meantime, we actually brought this business to the level where it is, because it was at that point of time, of course, it needed rescue, it needed bailout, it needed really significant recap by the Republic of Slovenia that chipped in 2.23 billion euro. But of course, there were commitments then to the European Commission that we had to fulfill and deliver. The most important one being the privatization. So the crown process and jewel process, more or less, was privatization execution. And we were on the roadshow 3 times. Twice supposedly to be deal roadshow, and the state pulled back.
I remember the times.
Yeah, and then we had to add additional commitments. We had to forego, for example, life insurance business that we've been partnering in with the KBC, for example, right? Joint venture, highly successful business. We built this business from 0 to 20% market share as a bank. Well, insurance business, right? Life insurance business. But this was really decisive one, because we had a straitjacket of the state aid since 2012 when I joined, up to more or less 2018, 14th of November. I remember, I'll never forget. 65% listed in Iran and London, right, through the GDR program. Then June 2019, where the residual 10% were done. And these then unleashed all potentials. And then we suddenly appeared as someone that is, potent, that suddenly can do something. And the first thing we did in 6 months was buying the bank with the largest network in Serbia, for example, where we were really the underdog with 2% market share. We suddenly were able to do this. And then you need somehow a stroke of luck a bit, right? If we had some luck to be able to pull this one off. But we did it basically within 6 months after getting released, right? And get another, luck moment. We signed the contract 6 days before official declaration of pandemic. Imagine. Would we dare to sign the SPA if pandemic was declared 7 days earlier? Would you
As mentioned before, you always need this notch of luck in every deal you do.
Yeah. Would you dare? You would not even think of signing such a deal if the world is collapsing. So sometimes you need luck, right? And then we were also, then this actually was the real decisive moment that triggered in everyone's head working for NLB. Wow, we can do big things. After 7 years of bleeding, reducing, getting out of geographies, getting out of portfolios, getting out of industries, firing people, shutting branches, we can again do something meaningful. We can again grow. We can, do big stuff. And this really, transformed the minds of key colleagues. And then on, actually, we applied, growth attitude. Then we started looking around. Of course, there are capital considerations. Of course, there are liquidity considerations, everything else. But, then you see that you can do big stuff. And this is automatic trigger. You enter this mode simply. And that's different operating model from hard restructuring to transition, right, to growth. That's 3 totally different management styles, leadership styles, operating models. Now we actually on daily basis analyze actively all eventual M&A opportunities in banking, leasing, insurance, life insurance in the region. Ancillary space, mobility platform. We just bought the web portal, for example. We bought the asset management company in Macedonia. We bought, obviously, the largest leasing in Slovenia with offspring in Croatia, which is coming back to Croatia after 33 years for the first time, right? And so on.
Before we jump into NLP and the strategy, I think that is already quite.
This is something I'm curious
You're
about.
Curious about. One more on your development. You said that the craftsmanship or what you learned was Vienna, basically the base Kreditanstalt and the like. And still now, as a CEO as well, you have leadership capacity. What shaped you most in those years? Western owners, also state-owned, you said. Was there a person, was there something where I said, okay, that's the leadership I want to have now in this growth that NLP is doing?
I mean, there was, for every why, there was every because. No? So I was actually, in the first 10 years of my career, having very, very intensive experience landscape. And meeting a lot of leaders and managers, and all of them had their role in this or other way. They all somehow helped me calibrate the way how I should behave. I remember that time CEO of Raiffeisen gave me a message. You do this next time, I'll just open the window. Because I publicly went against him for such things you remember. I will do nothing else. When you jump in here so quickly, I will just open the window. Wisdom, right? Think twice, sleep over, right? Don't jump to conclusions. But then there were, of course, very decisive ones, such as the likes that you were obviously bullied. I entered the premises of a supervision agency. I had a slot at 1 until 2. No one looked at me. So the message was rendered before we even started having a hearing. Right? So this is profiling you. Hardship profiles you. You start reading between the lines. You start understanding from situations. You start really listening very carefully, trying to figure out, which are really material details and which are immaterial details. But in terms of a style, you learn on the go that you are the one that, if you want to be really the leader, that is removing the hurdles. You realize sooner or later that they come to you when there is real shit, right? They don't come, to celebrate jointly easily. The higher you go, right, the more you're alone and the wind is stronger. You are there, only in case of real trouble, because then they come and then you have to resolve because you are the best paid. This is your decision, right? And you learn on the go that you are the actually hurdle remover, right? And the sooner you realize that, the better for you, right? And then you listen, and you should, here I have to remove one hurdle, here I have to, how do I enable you? How do I, make sure that you can fly? And if you are applying this mode, it's easier for you to progress quicker. So you learn actually from people that you see are hurdle removers, because they really help people strive. They really help people excel, and they don't take credit automatically for it. It's easier said than done, but you learn from difficult situations. This one, when I learned, I didn't get a license, right? This is a self-reflection moment. Is it me? Did I really do something wrong? Professionally, personally, you start reflecting. You have to be reflecting on the go. Every new, milestone is reflection point. And I said, I was working for, it's not few, right? 5. This is my 5th banking group, insurance group, brokerage house, right? So it was happening very intensively. In first 10 years of my career, I changed 7 or 6, 8 employers and 14 positions. Imagine this is a continuous stress. That's a continuous stress. You are for 6 months in incoming and for 6 months in outgoing.
Which creates resilience.
Which creates resilience. And that's why I'm wearing the heart of Sarajevo. That's a very specific message. It's a symbol of resilience. What this city withstood, right? You have to build resilience. If you want to be a long-term successful manager, you have to be extremely resilient because you have to learn that you are there for hard stuff, not for weak stuff.
Raiffeisen Bank International. Make it happen.